I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Megan Grevner, and this is Managing for Profit on Brownfield, a content partnership with UPL. With us today is Ryan Bryant-Schlobaum. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. As growers consider rotating sorghum acres, obviously managing weed pressure in field season to season is an incredible and an important part of that conversation. As the only herbicide registered for the igrowth IMIFLEX Sorghum Production System, IMIFLEX herbicide provides superior control of both grass and broadleaf weeds in igrowth sorghum. In recent years, Ryan, sorghum has had a lot of interest from growers. As we go into 2023, what factors for 2023 should sorghum growers consider?
Yeah, of course. One of the big things that we've been hearing from growers, and one of the things we've seen the last several years, is the prolonged drought conditions, especially when you look in areas like Kansas, Nebraska, and working its way all the way into Texas. So a lot of those states being really at the heart of where grain and forage sorghum is produced in the United States. And in a lot of these situations, that grain or forage sorghum crop has really turned into the only viable option in the face of these drought conditions. So unfortunately, though, it looks that even in some of these pockets, the drought conditions are likely to continue as we move into the spring, according to the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center. So when we consider that and likely facing continued drought conditions in a lot of these pockets of sorghum production, sorghum looks to be an even more attractive crop than it already is for its production characteristics. We think of sorghum as a very heat and drought tolerant crop. So it's able to use less water to produce a crop, as well as utilize less inputs than what we would traditionally use with a crop like corn. So it makes itself a very sustainable and practical option for a lot of these areas prone to drought conditions.
We talk about those drought conditions, but we also have to think about weed control as well. So why is it so important to focus on weed control as well after drought?
Yeah, so weeds, they have that unique ability, regardless of if it's perfect growing conditions or tough growing conditions, they always find a way. And coming out of a drought, there's still going to be a lot of those weed seeds in the seed bank that are just waiting to germinate. So even the slightest amount of rainfall or irrigation, we're going to see a flush of weeds come. And if we don't control those weeds, it can have some pretty substantial impacts on our growers' bottom line, impacting yield, grain quality, and just overall efficiency of that production system. And UPL and Alta Seeds, they're really pleased to offer the igrowth IMIFLEX production system. This is the first of its kind herbicide tolerant grain and forage sorghum on the market in the United States. And it's really helped sorghum growers control weed pressure at a new level and preserve the quality of their crop. And what it allows is for growers to have the flexibility of how they use this system. When we think of sorghum, it's a very flexible crop, where it can be grown, how it can be used. And we want to maintain that flexibility when it comes to managing weeds in that system. And that's what IMIFLEX allows. So we can either use a highly effective pre-emergence application or a post-emergence application of IMIFLEX, controlling a list of grass and broadleaf weeds. And we look at IMIFLEX, whether it's pre or post, we have no minimum crop height restriction for that application. So what that means is growers can preserve their flexibility and utilize this technology when it is most effective on the weeds and not have to worry anything about the safety to their crop. The igrowth system has amazing crop safety, and combining that with IMIFLEX herbicide, we're really able to allow them to see the full realm of weed control in their sorghum systems.
Really definitely putting that flex part of IMIFLEX to work, right?
Of course, yeah, that's what it's all about.
What weed pressures do sorghum growers need to look for this spring in particular?
You know, I would say there's a long list of some of the big ones, but with IMIFLEX, what it is, it's a broad spectrum group 2 herbicide. So with this, we'll have good control on both grass and broadleaf weeds. So we'll have that list of broadleaf weeds we control, or we can also use tank mixing. That flexibility piece is key, both from weed control, but also stewardship. So being able to tank mix IMIFLEX with other traditional sorghum chemistries is a very real option for growers that utilize this igrowth system. But what IMIFLEX is going to bring to the table is some really heightened control of grassy weeds like sandbur, volunteer corn, crabgrass, barnyard grass, and our foxtail species, to name a few. The other thing to really keep in mind is that this is a non-GMO technology. So using igrowth and IMIFLEX, there are no channeling or export restrictions for grain or forage as a result of utilizing this technology.
Ryan, are you seeing more interest in sorghum outside of traditional sorghum growing areas as well, just because of some of the weather challenges and some of the drought pressures?
Yes, very much so. So I guess for reference, I live in kind of the heart of sorghum production, the middle of the Texas Panhandle. And, traditionally with a lot of dairies, you see them, dairies and feed yards see them utilize corn for their forage or corn silage. And due to water, I shouldn't say water restrictions, but lack of water in a lot of these pockets as the aquifer recedes and well capacities drop, forage sorghum becomes an even more viable option for them, transitioning those corn acres on limited or lacking water to something like a forage sorghum, but also expanding those acres out to other areas just for that simple fact of how resilient sorghum is and what this igrowth technology brings to the table now for increased weed control.
Ryan, if folks want to learn more about the iGrowth system or IMIFLEX, where do they go?
So anyone with wanting more information, iGrowth and IMIFLEX, or growers particular, I would encourage you reach out to your local retailers, UPL representatives, or visit www.sorghumpotential.com.
Ryan, thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Yes, thank you, Megan. Appreciate it.
I'm Megan Grebner with Managing for Profit on Brownfield, a content partnership with UPL.